Hey everyone, I think it's working. Hey Caitlin, hey Ethan, hey Gabe, hey Nepco. Glad you guys are here. Yeah, the core posse here. I was just texting with Kosuke. He can't jump on, unfortunately, today, but we'll get him on the next stream for sure. If not that one, the one after. But we'll get him in here, and when he gets on, we can talk about multiple songs at once or whatever. But yeah, thank you guys for being here. I'm obviously this is the second stream that we've done, and learned some things on the first one. Yeah, Absofacto, it's perfect. It's definitely because since this is a morning stream, I have not showered yet, and my hair looks stupid as hell. So we get the hat instead. But we learned in the first stream that the stream can go down. My internet sucks really bad. So if that happens again, just know that I will go live again, and it should send out another notification. Some people figured out how to get in if it goes down again, but just if it goes down, just know, check with the channel because I will come right back up. And you know, this isn't relevant to people here, but I will be keeping all of these streams up, so the people can enjoy it whenever they want to watch it. Just while we're waiting for people to come in, Rishi is asking, why did you change your name as a musician? I mean, I've changed it throughout my career a few times, usually because it was changing from being like a band to sort of a new band to eventually it became like a solo thing with Absofacto, but then ironically I still collaborated with the people from my bands on the stuff sometimes. But yeah, there's something about the name change moments that kind of let you sort of, you can shed things and be like, I'm going to put some things in a box that is an older box that might have represented a different perspective that I had, and it's like a fresh start. And I think the most recent one, which isn't a name change, is NITESHIFT, but that's kind of a different thing because I'm not NITESHIFT. I'm just extremely interested in NITESHIFT, and NITESHIFT is really like the community and me. It's kind of like I'm Absofacto and I'm presenting NITESHIFT, and it really feels like the first time where I'm able to talk more because I like talking about things other people made, and I like being a fan of the things. And when it's just, hey, here's the thing I made, and it's just me, it's harder for me to do that. I don't think it's my place to talk about my own stuff that way, in that exact way, but I really like the collaborative element of NITESHIFT, and the fact that it is external to me makes it so I can kind of focus on something external, and I think that's nicer. Rishi, you're also saying you want more songs like Lemon Drop. That we've got a few in the works. Lemon Drop was a big Kosuke song. The initial idea with that one came from him, and then we worked on it together into the version that you know it to be. But yeah, I'm glad you like that song. I would like to do more like that. I wish that song got heard more. Not a lot of people heard that one. And hello to also 11. I'm a shrimp. I like your username a lot. Okay, well, we got people in here. We're doing this thing. So the point of the stream today is we're gonna kind of go over some of the production, just talk about it on Unquit You. So if you're a music producer, this will make a lot of sense to you. And if you're not a music producer, I bet you're creative in some other way. And the way that I like to talk about this stuff, I think, is broadly applicable across whatever kind of creativity you manifest your ideas through. Hi Samantha, and I just yeah, I think this is going to be kind of a theme. I think with a lot of things that I'm doing going forward is I think all creativity kind of comes from the same place, and I think that your relationship with creativity can really be something that you don't need to limit yourself to one kind of thinking. Even if what you primarily do is make music, I've gotten more out of, I think I've gotten more to bring into my music making from studying like filmmaking techniques, or even learning about like 3D software, or writing stories. Like all of these different forms of creativity, there's all, I don't know, I think it all feeds into to itself. I'm reading a really cool book on video game design right now, and so many things from that even remind me of my music making process. The way that they talk about iterating and kind of failing fast, trying ideas. So yeah, I think, let's just get into it a little bit, and we'll talk about Unquit You and the production. I'm really excited, by the way. I've been looking forward to this. I had such a good time on the first stream, and I want to just be doing this all the time. So um, the sort of like the slickness of this stream might not be there. We're using Rodeo, which is a beta YouTube situation, so I can only stream from my phone. I can't use like OBS, which is what you use to like kind of be able to show your screen and do different things yet. But I do think that as Rodeo develops, it's going to be really nice, and I'm sure that they will add all of the cool features from that you would expect from something like Twitch and things like that. And a couple of people have asked why I'm doing it here instead of something like Twitch, and it's a couple things. I just am really focused on YouTube in general. That's where the most important stuff happening with Night Shift is kind of coming out. That's like sort of the official place with like the videos like Unquit You and Vibe Till I Die. So it's, yeah, YouTube is kind of like the central hub right now, and then Discord, which if you're not in there, please get in there, is definitely the community hub right now, and there's a lot more being built. But yeah, anyway, I'm really happy you guys are here. This is great. So I'll talk from a bird's eye view for a second on Quit You. This was a song where there was a time period where I kind of felt like it's almost like so my creativity really comes from my heart, and it's really important to me to know when I'm reaching into that well of creativity and pulling something out, that I can trust that the process will be worth it, and it's worth it when I know that it will come out. And so, because I know that even if I spend months on something, the end result will get to see the light of day. And as a lot of you know, just in the process of being on a label and stuff, like I couldn't trust that anymore. And so what happened was the wall went up, and things didn't come out of my heart as easily for a while, because it was so kind of, the creative impulse wasn't really respected by the process. And so Unquit You is one of the few songs that kind of sprung fully, it sort of fully formed out of my heart. I very distinctively remember it coming to me in the shower, and I heard the bass movement, and I had the first line about the cigarette, and I just kind of saw the whole concept, and even and my voice was in a special form that day, and the and like especially with those falsetto parts, like the I wish that I could unquit, that stuff. Like my voice does something different every day when you're on that sensitive edge of it, and so that day was really special. And actually, a lot of the vocals for that section are in the final song are from that first day, because sometimes there's just a certain airy edge that you're only going to get the day you wrote it. So some of those original vocals from day one are in the song, and yeah, it just it came out really fully formed. It was a really rough demo. The drums were really bad. The sounds were really bad, but it didn't really matter. It was just everyone kind of was like, Kosuke was like, this one's really good. And even my mixer friend Jeff Ellis, who I'm a huge fan of, when I played him all the songs from the EP, he was like, that is the one, and he was like, don't change it. The demo is perfect. Thankfully, even though we did change it a lot. His review at the end was that he's like, you kept everything good about it and you made it better. So that made me really happy. Okay, but that's just sort of the bird's eye view. There's a very particular emotion to it, and I'm just going to start going through section by section and breaking down some of the sounds that are going on. So it starts like this. And I still miss pressing my lips to a cigarette. Like my heart just doesn't quite get that it's over yet. Everything had to quit. You're the one that I just can't get back if I want to. You know I want to. You and me. Okay, so I'll stop there. There's I would call that the intro, but it's also kind of the sort of the pre-chorus, which leading with the pre-chorus is great. So let's just look at what's going on there right now. I have this as kind of simple stems. So first up here is the vocal stem. This is, you can hear what it sounds like isolated. And I still miss pressing my lips to a cigarette. Like my heart just doesn't quite get that it's over yet. Everything had to quit. You're the one that I just can't get back if I want to. You know I want to. You. So a few things to be said about just the vocal in general. I said this on the last stream too, but they're all done on this. It's a Shure SM7, SM7B, very famously the microphone used by like Michael Jackson back on like the Thriller kind of era, or maybe everywhere. I am not able to share my screen on this. Rodeo doesn't have that. I will say there's not really much to see. It's really just because this is just it's a Logic project with just the stems printed already, and all the plugins are disabled and everything like that in this version, because this was basically my summing session. But back to vocals. So all done on this. I really like it because you can put your mouth right up on it, and it cuts out all the room sound, and you get that really close, intimate sound. And I find that, as some people would describe it, this microphone takes processing really well. So you can kind of like really be aggressive with it in the way that you process things. It kind of naturally, because it's a dynamic mic, it kind of compresses a little bit on the way in, and it doesn't have a ton of air to it, which I find actually to be a really good thing. I'd rather add that with something like Slate Fresh Air, which is a free plugin that's absolutely incredible. It changed everything. Really, really good. Yeah. And you'll notice there's a couple other details you'll notice with this. Long reverb throws in between each line. Lips to a cigarette. Like my heart just... And what I want to say about those is that those long throws, the long reverb throws are, if you're not careful with long reverbs, because each different note is going to stick around so long, you'll start to make a cluster chord in the reverb, and it's going to sound kind of like I associate that with sort of lazy production. And so what I do is I'll split off, once I have my lead vocal kind of like generally okay, I might print it even with like the effects on. It doesn't matter if they change a little bit later, because this is just raw audio to feed into effects, and I'll make a second track that has my long reverb on it, and I will just throw the last note of each line on something like this. I would throw the last note in so that the reverb is only cleanly that last note stretching through the space, and that helps it from getting cluttered. It gives you a lot more control, and then you can print. And then I'll tend to print the reverb to audio and control when the tail cuts off. So the moment it's not adding, I'll just quickly fade it out naturally, and so it doesn't clutter up like a note that might come in afterwards. So that's really like the, in terms of like the trick of that opening thing, that's really it. And I really find that I like to go line by line and listen and sing each line. And the moment I hear something I don't like, I just record a new one over top of it and just keep destructively recording over top of each line until I really like how it sounds. Angela is asking, what does the mic sound like raw? Do you find yourself coming in with... I'm not seeing the rest of your thing. Rodeo's in beta, so the chat might be a little bit weird. Angela, if you can give me the second part of your question, I'll answer it. Caitlin, I also wanted to say Jacqueline's not going to join this stream because this one's about just the music, but I'm going to do a separate stream that's going to be about the video creation, and she is going to be on for that. So I'll be really excited to introduce you all to her on the live stream. And yeah, that's a big day. I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so the only other thing going on in the intro right now, other than a transitional element that will go, is this. What I have is the instrument low track, and the reason that it's called that on here is I tend to organize projects in a certain way, and I like to take all the instruments that kind of are a little bit favoring the lower mids, and put those together on a track, because I'll tend to find that I do similar cleanup to those sounds. So I might process them together as a bus. I might want all the low mids to be like wide or whatever. And it also helps me kind of, by grouping them like that, it's easy for me to solo it and only listen to those and listen for clashes in instruments that are targeting the same range. And so here's what the inst low track sounds like at the beginning of the song. And we'll revisit this track throughout each section. Very simple, just literally 4 chords. I'm pretty sure that is based around Keyscape, which is a plugin that has like kind of whirly and piano and organ sounds, but they're processed into a modern context. So I'm pretty sure that sound, the basis of that sound is from that, and then got a lot of EQ and processing. Very simple thing. And then right around that moment we have a little transition, which together sounds like this. Takes us into the verse. The transitional elements. Oh, I wanted to say to Gabe, the band name, what reverb do I use? Like almost everybody, I lean heavy on Valhalla Vintage Verb. Love that thing. It's fantastic. It can be a little bit muddy. You gotta be careful with the EQ, but just as a general like aesthetic, like reverb that you're not gonna go wrong with, the Valhalla stuff is relatively inexpensive and very, very good. So in this transition, here's what we have going on. We kind of skip the last chord 4 times, which is a kind of classical rhythmic trick. Kind of, make it sound like it's skipping, stuttering. I feel like I've loved that ever since, like, I don't know, like DJ Shadow type stuff. Then there's this FX Atmosphere track, which is another one of my organizational things that I like to do. This is what's going on at that moment. Just a little like vocal throw note. It might be like a little thing from Splice, possibly. I'm pretty sure Kosuke added that. Then here is from my FX Big track, which is where a group that I like to put sounds that are meant to evoke bigness in a variety of ways. I don't know what this sound is going to be. Oh, okay. You might not even be able to hear it. There's just like a sort of deep, like cinematic that hits on like the beginning of the verse. I'll play it one more time just in case you can hear it. And I like using those like deep, like kind of cinematic type sounds. You can find a lot of them on Splice or in different libraries that are focused on cinematic stuff. And if you EQ them so they don't take over the whole mix, they can add a lot of depth and drama and kind of just like production value, I guess. Then there's this track, which I have it as FX optional, which means I don't know why I don't even know if it's in the song. Okay, that's just like a little white noise tearing sound, like a just for a little extra push into the downbeat. And then there's this last track, which hits on one, which is FXWN, which is white noise. I like to take all the elements that are mainly contributing like kind of white noisiness to a song and put those all on one track too, because then I can make sure they don't get out of whack. And that literally is just some vinyl crackle that comes in on the verse. Again, you might not be able to hear it. It's very subtle. It's just, sometimes it's nice in a production to just add a little bit of white noise or hiss or vinyl crackle just up top, just a thin layer to just open up. It kind of just opens up the roof and the speakers. It defines like a ceiling. Okay, and so now we're into the verse. Let's listen to the verse really quick. You and me, a little more than we planned to be. You wouldn't live in the past for me. Was it burning too bright? And I still miss pressing my lips to a cigarette. Like my heart just doesn't quite get that it's over yet. Everything had to quit. You're the one that I just can't get back if I want to. You know I want to. But we should quit you. Okay, so that's the verse. I'm going to mute the vocal for a second. The vocal is kind of more of the same. The big thing to know with the vocal for this thing is just that there's a lot of little like reverse reverbs and throw reverbs, and it's just all detailed syllable by syllable. But I'm going to mute that for a second. Let's just listen to just the instrumental here, and then we'll break it down a little bit. Okay, so the big thing that happens here is, we establish these chords, and the chords take up a lot of space in the intro, and then so for the scene change into the verse, that's completely gone. So we start out with this kind of spot. We introduce the bass for the first time and the drums at the first time all together. So here's that. And so the bass here, hopefully you can hear it. So you can kind of hear it's really ebbing and flowing. It's like a bong, like boom, boom. So every other note is sort of like a reverse note almost, and they flow perfectly kind of naturally into each other, and that was the result. This is a bass from, I think, probably Trillion, maybe Keyscape or Omnisphere, one of the Spectrasonics things I'm pretty sure I used for this. I auditioned probably 100 basses in the song, and I landed on this one because of the emotional reaction I had to it. And then I split off each note onto its own track, and I EQ'd and perfected each note. Since it's just 4 notes repeating through the entire song, there's only 4 bass notes. It was worth it to me so it's not complicated. So I could just perfect the tone of every single note and set it to be essentially the same throughout the whole song, and then let everything else breathe around that. So there's a really stable foundation on the bass. And then the drums, which it doesn't sound like it, but so much work went into getting the filtering right. So these drums, tons of samples layered up. It doesn't sound like a lot of samples, but it's very lo-fi on purpose. Probably used something like either Decimort, D16 Decimort to bit crush it, or possibly in combination with Good Hertz Lossy, which kind of does like MP3 type compression. So you get little chirpy artifacts. Kosuke described that he always we didn't fight. He really was a big proponent of the drums on this song, sounding kind of having like a papery edge, he would describe it as. And if you think of it like I mean, this literal paper, like kind of like something like that, that thin, the frequency range that hits is kind of like a target that we had in mind for the drums. And I really distinctly remember spending days listening to just the drums and the bass on loop out of this tiny little speaker called an Aventone mix cube. They're like this big. I listened in mono. It's just a single speaker with no tweeter or anything. It's just like a mid-range speaker. And just being like, if these drums are going to feel good, they should feel good here. And I would adjust timing by milliseconds of subdivisions, and I would adjust the volume and EQ of each hit until it was just kind of felt natural and perfect. It's not on the grid, it's off the grid, and wanted to make the perfect kind of loop. And I think that we got it. So we ended up with that. And then, so I'm just going to play kind of the other instruments. I'm going to mute the drums and the bass and the vocal now, and I'm just going to play the other instruments for a second. So you can kind of hear the ebb and flow, because these are the elements that kind of give it growth and life over the section. So it won't sound like much at first, but you'll start to hear things coming in. So we got like, that's when the verse starts. Verse reverb. Keys come back in. And there's that high, like, held drone note that adds all that air. Just like gives you a little blissful feeling. Another drone comes in, fattening out the chord. Kosuke is really good at those. And then a little thing to grab your attention. And then it kind of breathes into the next section. So getting those high-end, droney, airy elements, like ebbing and flowing and kind of like hitting and dying off, and then like sneaking back in when you don't expect it, and then like a little interest like thing, like that's the really fun stuff. Without that, it just sounds a lot more dead. And it's interesting. It's like the musical complexity of this is very low. Just those four chords over and over again, and the melody floats over top of that, and there's plenty of like interest there. But what really gives you the impression that the whole thing is alive and complex is that it's not really musical complexity, it's textural complexity and tonal complexity. There's always just something morphing in your ears, and that there's so many dimensions you can use for that, and that's really, you know, your particular way of adding that kind of life to your production is really defining to your style, I think. And you'll notice even we will reuse some of the same sounds. We might just pitch shift the ah to a different note for a different song, and it starts to add up to being like a style. So let's look at where we go from here. So this is into the sort of the pre-chorus. I will play it really quick. Pre-chorus, I don't know. I don't even know what the sections of this song are. It's the first Unquit You part. Okay, so we kind of do a build-up thing here. I'm going to mute the vocal again because there's not much to say about that we haven't already said. You can kind of hear what's going on there. Some of those vocals are me singing it the day that I wrote it. They just, you know, that airy edge, I was never going to get it better than that day one. Okay, so let's take a look at what's going on there. Here's the drum track. It's just got a little tiny bit of stuff going on in this section. So just a really filtered down loop. Just kind of slowly being like turned up. Just to keep you moving. And then maybe go into that section. And then we have, I'll add this. This is the inst high track. This is kind of like, to me, this is sort of Kosuke signature stuff. He's really good with these kind of sparkly music boxy sort of sounds, and he contributed a lot of that to this song. So good. So that stuff is like I think it's probably this thing Signal by a company called Output or something similar. You know, there's a plugin called Signal that makes a lot of this kind of music boxy stuff pretty easy. But again, it is just kind of like a shortcut to an aesthetic thing that you can do 100 different ways. You can use music box samples, you can use marimba samples, xylophones, whatever. But I really like that music box quality. And then here is adding in the low track. I'm going to mute the high one and make the low one easier to hear. So you got the chords and like a really 80s like synth arpeggio. Some like Doogie Howser MD bullshit. And so those things together is the inst high and the inst low together for the build. Just like an interlocking puzzle. It's pretty. Okay, and then I'm going to show you this track. This is the atmosphere track again. So that kind of helps us fall out of the section. Let's get all weird and blissed out. So I love that part. It's very, I like that it kind of steps on itself a little bit, and the notes start to get almost too thick in like an orchestral way. And I know that I think the source of that was, I do a process, you know, Kosuke and I will like kind of call it like throwing shit at the screen, but we'll go into our zone for like, you know, personal headphone, like go into headphone world for like 4 hours. And my way of doing it, his way is slightly different, but my way of doing it is I like to open up Ableton, I take a balance of the whole song with just the raw elements, and I start going through my sample libraries, I start pulling up patches on synths, and a big one I like to do is just to literally open up the Splice website and just set the key of the song and go like, and just listen to a bunch of shit, so much shit, and anything that even sparks like the slightest bit of, oh, that, I don't know, that was interesting, it might change the song into something different, I'll just grab it and throw it in a folder, or I'll throw it in Ableton, and I'll end up with 150 sounds, loops, like little bits and bobs all over the place. It's a mess. And then I will go through and start sorting that into categories, because you're not going to use like, you might find 30 drum loops that have something cool about them that they contribute to the song, but you're not going to use all 30 because it's going to sound like shit. So you should not do that, and instead you should pick one or two, or be like, well, I really just like the way that this one hits on the downbeat, and I like what this little space does to the snare, and I like this subdivision, I didn't think about that, and a percussive track. And I'll dial it in, and then I'll kind of come up with like a pack of like what I think of as ads. And it's important to me that I'm not doing this in the actual session of the song. This is a separate session that is meant to be a mess, which gives it the freedom to be like, I know I'm going to leave the mess here, and I'm not going to bring the mess back into my main project, because we still end up with 150 tracks on basically any song that we do. Not all the time, but a lot of times. And you can't be bringing in 60 extra things you're not going to use, because you're just going to get buried under your own indecision. So this track was this thick string thing, I think, was something that I heard by doing that process. And it's something I never would have written it exactly like that, but when I heard it, I was like, the feeling that gives me is what I want. So here is one more time. This is inst high, inst low, the atmospheres, and the drums. See you, Gabe. Thanks for tuning in. You should watch the rest later for sure. But we'll be doing lots of these. So, all right. So here's what the atmosphere is over top of it. The thick strings are what I'm paying attention to right now. And then the only other elements in here are a little less important, but there's the FX Big track, which just is contributing a little bit of like those cinematic depth hits. Probably can't hear that. It's a deep one. It sounds like an explosion underground. So just big, movie trailer stuff. And then the white noise track is not going to be that interesting, but it is. There's an interaction between that and the all the other elements. So there's kind of like a white noise suck into some of these like little dropouts. White noise just helps. It just adds tension. Okay. That's good enough for the pre-chorus. So now let's get to the chorus. And this sounds like this. We know this section. Okay, so yeah, obviously very important section. Kosuke and I were very adamant about this song not getting too big. We wanted kind of like a fake bigness on purpose. Like it is ultimately still kind of like coming out of like a music box. It's a little bit constrained. The vocal stays big, and if you think about the scale between instruments and vocals, it's kind of like an interesting thing to sort of try to pay attention to, because like a song like this, like there's no reason for like, if you have like orchestral drums going on, these big sounds, why would you be able to hear a guy singing in falsetto? You wouldn't. It doesn't make any sense. The guy would have to be like screaming for you to even possibly hear him. And so accepting that artificiality and being like, we're going to make the music constrained to this, and then the vocal is allowed to be this like god figure like over the fake landscape, is an intentional scale thing we'll think about. NEPCO, I mean, how do you know when to stop adding instruments and elements? That is very difficult, and it's really the process is adding is not the last thing that you ever do. Adding is always, it's like it's a left, you're walking left, right, and you add things only so that you can take things away. And I think that the last thing, I'm not going to say it's like an absolute rule, but like a general mindset would be that the last thing you should ever be doing on a song is removing anything that you can. You don't want to be, you got to sometimes throw things in and give them a chance to speak. But I do kind of, everything competes with everything else. This is a deep topic, but one way that I like to view it, and this has really helped me, is that every single song in the world exists in a box of the same size. Essentially, it's like this is as far left as you can go, this is as far right as you can go, this is as far back as you can perceive, this is as close as you can get, and here's the ceiling and here's the floor. That's the same for every song. So a song that you perceive as big is occupying the same space as a song you perceive as tiny, like an acoustic song, and thinking about that space and filling that space, the less you put in it, the bigger each sound is. And I'm sitting here saying we're doing 150 tracks, but so many of those, none of them are, they're never all playing at the same time. And a lot of them are ultimately perceived as a single sound that is made up of 10 sounds. So in terms of your question, how to know when to stop adding instruments and elements, I think that is where you as a creator are basically, it's up to you, because your style is going to come through in how you answer that question. But I would recommend trying, as someone who often adds a lot, falls in love with things, and maybe in the past has left too many things in, if you can remove it and it reveals something else that you like, probably remove it. Okay, so let's go through this really quick. The bass is the same as it has been through the song. The drums are going to be interesting in this section. So this is like essentially peak drums for the song. So bunch of layers, loops, depth things. There's hi-hats that come in, shakers, little things, and then at the end there's that which, like, you know, I think that was like again like a kosuke thing, kind of these like siren modular drums. We talk about like modular synth drums a lot. We really like that. Here's the high instrument track, which is probably going to be somewhat similar to the build because it kind of like has pre-echoed in the build. So similar music box thing, but it just has more reverb. It's a little more spacious. And then here's the low instruments on the chorus. So some more like 80s synth arpeggio kind of stuff, and there's sort of like a canned like fake choir in there, which I like the fakeness of that. Caitlin mentioned the fiery effects. Originally there was a music video idea that was going to have like sort of smoke and be like in an apartment, and we actually used some sounds of like lighting matches and things in the song because we wanted to like create more connection to like the sort of cigarette kind of theme, but we went a different direction, and but the fire stuff still sounded cool, so still works with the cigarette metaphor. Ethan's asking, is this a new song? No, we're still doing still going over Unquit You. The whole stream is going to be dedicated to Unquit You. And so here's the atmospheres in the chorus. I think they kind of just come in at the end. Just another drone. Just some weird shit for the transition. It's always nice around a transition point to just like use that as an opportunity to overload the speakers a little bit and kind of push towards people so that it's like, oh shit, something's coming, and then you'd make a change. It works. It feels good. This is the big track. Just like big cinematic bullshit. Gong. And then a build. Yep. And white noise tracks gonna be more of that stuff. Here's some of the fire actual, like, these are the sounds of like fire. Yeah. Yeah, so those are a bunch of fire sound effects. Like, we just went through like different sample libraries. Just felt nice to have fire sounds in the song with the cigarette metaphor. Then we get to my favorite part of the song, second verse. Just listen to that real quick. Got a good imagination. I'm tired of summon you for 3 weeks running. Still sleeping way out to the one side. Come dance with me. Another dream I didn't say so. You know me, it breaks me now. You know me, smile. Okay, so let's take a look at that. The vocal, this is the point in the song where I trust that the listener has absorbed the structure of the melody and things, and so the second verse is always my favorite because it's when you get to defy expectation because you've established a pattern. So you establish a pattern, people kind of get it, they've heard sort of basic thing, and then you get to the second verse and you get to play with it. So it just feels alive and fun. So yeah, and like lyrically you can expand out because you don't have to establish the story anymore. You're already in the stories. It's why like the first episode of a television show is never going to be the best episode because they have to introduce the characters and they have to do things different. It's going to be that fifth episode or something where it's like everything clicks together and you're like, I'm in, I understand what's going on. Now you're fucking with me a little bit more. Okay, so let's look at the sounds we got going on here. The bass changes up on the second verse. I'm going to play that with the drums, I think. Just change the attitude. Just some, like, slightly flowy, like reversey. That's a bass change. So we roll off the top to make room for the other instruments. Alright, so there's that. And then the inst high, there doesn't look like there's much going on in this one. Oh yeah, just some little like choir tops. And they only come in on these moments. Just to, you know, singe your ear with digital air. Yes, and hey Matthew, yes, the bass is filthy. If you're gonna do bass like that, it's gotta be filthy. You gotta do that like subtract wildfire shit. I like the little detuning. I like the tension of that last one. Here's adding the inst low track, which looks like it kind of hits in a similar kind of space. Just fattens up those weird swells. Here's another one. And then we got this. You know, gotta bring the chords back in. They always come back. And back into the darkness. Here is the atmosphere track. Let's just listen to it by itself with the drums and the bass. Kind of like reverse cymbals, and like there's like just a lot of atmosphere throws for like changing the depth. It doesn't really add musical information. Okay. So now the song kind of goes to like rolling along while we bring back this vocal. It's got a couple more layers, so there's some extra depth to it at this point. And the big things here are the inst low and inst high tracks really get active. Kind of like a slide guitar country thing. Oh, they didn't play right. That transition. Just drop everything out so we can hit the chorus. I do want to play, I'm going to mute the inst low for a second because I think the inst high is kind of the interesting thing here. Kosuke did that. Genius man. And then, yeah, this little breakdown right before the last chorus I really like. Just a quick little, you know, 4-bar, I guess, little break so that we can, you know, we've already kind of done the building up on the, I wish that I could end, that part. So, like, this is more of the, like, we just want to go right into it. So this is a little break to make it so we get small so that we can get big. You know, this last chorus, it's just everything kind of going. Everything we've already heard. Might be you know, Kosuke did these like little kind of arpeggiated, boopy like fill things. One of my favorite things in the song. Let me see if I can isolate it really quick. Is it this? No, not that one. It might be this. Yeah. Ow! There's just some random stuff. There's like some like kind of post-rocky like guitars, and bringing that little like incomplete melody just to like finish off the romance of it all. So and like kind of going over it, it's the thing that I'm kind of struck with revisiting it is that every single stem, of these, I've been working with 10 stems here, but they're made out of 150, they're all breathing together. They're all, well, the atmosphere track might be like pushing like a string swell or something. If you visit the other tracks at the same time, there might be a filter opening up on the synth, or the drums might be having like a shift happen in parallel, and just a lot of it's just a lot of time and detail and days and days and days of revisiting things, and just kind of, at a certain point, I think there's a point where you cross the 75% mark with a song or something you're working on, and where it's good enough, people will like it. But I really, just in sort of a zen like life standpoint, I really like trying to push that from that 75 to 100%, where you're just like, what if we just did all the things? And sometimes you lose something in that process, but I think on this song we didn't lose anything. It didn't get overworked, and I think part of the reason is like that we have a lot of experience with setting some limitations. Like we knew we wanted the drums to stay small, like sort of small, and getting the bass locked is as like a consistent foundational element was really big. And actually, ironically, I'm working on the next song right now. I'm finishing the mix for the next song, Fake Love, and the thing I'm struggling with is the bass, is the tone of it. It's a very active, like it's a live bass part. It's very active, and I like fat bass. I like it to be full down there. But what I'm running into is that because it's such a foundational element and it's so active, it's like played with a lot of character, that I can't have that. It's too much jumping around on the foundational level. And so I'm having to kind of like, lose characteristics I do like to make the whole thing work right now. And so thankfully, I think one of the things, the reason that this song works so well is that from its core, the actual architecture of it is extremely stable. It's just those 4 chords, and the bass is single held notes. Getting that right and keeping the drum groove right and consistent throughout was like made it so the rest of the production process was like a playground. We could just be inspired and think about texture and think about mood. So I would recommend, like, one of the things, regardless of what you're working on, sometimes it's nice to just come in and be absolutely pure intuitive. And certainly this song started from a pure intuitive moment. But I think that it is, if you're going to make work for a long time, you're going to do artistic work for a long time, getting a relationship with how to establish a stable foundation underneath is really good, because it becomes like a home base you can return to. So like on a song like this with 150 tracks, probably 15 times in the process, I would have days where I woke up and went like, this thing's a mess. And I would just mute a bunch of stuff knowing I'm going to put it back in, and then just maybe live with it for a full day with just being the vocals, drums, the bass, and the main keyboard part. Does that feel good? That should feel good without any of the other stuff. And if it doesn't feel good, then the other stuff doesn't matter. You need to work on the drum groove until the drum groove's right, or get the bass hitting right. If the mix doesn't sound good with only a few elements, it's never going to sound good with a lot of elements either. So, yeah, I think there's ways to adapt that to whatever form your creativity takes too. Get your foundation, like capture your inspiration, kind of get a version out, and then try to return to your foundation again and again. But and then experiment on the foundation. Return to the foundation. Experiment with the foundation, or on top of the foundation. Yeah, that's kind of like a, if you don't have your song structured yet, you might want to do that before you spend a day with a bunch of sounds. But then again, spending a day with a bunch of sounds can be very inspiring. So you might spend a day with sounds and be like, well, these sounds are what it's about now. But I do find that if you don't have a strong foundation that communicates as well, I think you still end up with like something beautiful, but sometimes it can be so abstract that it doesn't cut through the world, because the world doesn't really necessarily support um, music that leads with texture. Doesn't necessarily do that well, and I think you can have your cake and eat it too if you're kind of like, well, the foundational structure needs to communicate something. I think if you picked up an acoustic guitar and you played this song, it would still be a song. There would still be a foundation there, and then bring all that textural detail on top of something like that. That's how I like to approach it. I can really appreciate music that is texture forward without the structure, but it will never do as well as something that has it all, I guess. And by do as well, I mean, I don't mean in a commercial sense. I mean, when I say do as well, my benchmark is how the people who hear it can understand what you're communicating and feel something from it. And it's like the structural strength is like it's like the easy entry point. And it's like, okay, cool, I'm here. I've absorbed these chords. I've absorbed this music. And now I can appreciate this textural detail because it's placed in a meaningful context. Otherwise, it's like any one of these sounds, they're pretty on their own, but you're not going to be like passionate about like just that one string part in isolation. It's how it contributes to the greater whole. But yeah, I'm going to open it up for a second. Any questions anybody has, this has been really fun. I'm going to do a lot more like this. And I might do some more like produced kind of stream, like versions of this kind of content, but I really like doing it live. So I'm going to I'll open up the call-in line for a few minutes, but you can also ask me questions in the comments, and I will answer them. And if nobody calls, if nobody asks any questions, then I will just talk about whatever in the meantime. I'm trying to think if there's anything else interesting that I went over. So one thing I will say is just from a generalized standpoint, it's a really good idea. Like if you're, if what you do is make music, and you find a sound that does something that you like for instance, here's a sound I probably used 100 times. Nope, that's not one at all. Maybe this is one. That's not one either. Well, good job, John. There, let's call that one. I don't know if it is one, but gong. So that's like a very useful sound. It evokes like a certain kind of like, I mean, to be honest, it takes me back to like being a kid and like watching Ninja Turtles and like Shredder is nearby and it's like gong. Like it's a little bit of that feeling. But if you find something that you like that, organize it, keep it. You can use it on, you don't have to not reuse sounds on songs. Your songs are different enough. So you can and should reuse sounds a lot. It will help give you a style. It will make you more efficient. The point, like for a sound like that, I might be like, I need drama and I need impact. That's why I'm adding any sound at all. I have this sound, it works. Put it there. Cool, drama and impact. Move on. Effect achieved. Like the song is the song. And one of the ways I think people get really uppity about like making every sound from scratch every time or something like that, and I don't think that that's even wise, because it really is like, if you think about how many songs were just written on acoustic guitar, and acoustic guitar is like, you could write a new song tomorrow and have it sound nothing like anyone else's song that they wrote on acoustic guitar. And if you think production is so much more complicated than that, by then you have drums and bass and all these things, there's plenty of room. If you think of all of music production as like your acoustic guitar, like you don't need to worry about anything. I think that's an area where people worry about the wrong stuff. Caitlin is asking, will Vibe Till I Die get a production breakdown? Yes, it definitely will. I'm gonna loop back on that one and do a production breakdown on that. I might try to get Love Sad Kid and Limbo on. Um, Certainly Kosuke, he worked on that one as well. Maybe I can even get Jeff Ellis on. I don't know. He's the mixer. He's amazing. But yeah, I'm gonna do like a full that one. This one is a little easier. It's a bummer we didn't get Kosuke on for this, but because it was just me and him on this one, and I mixed it and mastered it too. But Vibe Till I Die has a lot more people involved, and it would be cool to hear from all of them. Let's see, Isabel, have you considered getting your music on the big screen? I mean, I would love to. The world has not afforded me the opportunity to get my music in movies and stuff like that. Certainly, it's possible. It would happen. I would love for it to happen. But I will say, if it doesn't happen in the traditional way, then as more of Night Shift stuff rolls out, especially more of the film side and things like that, then we'll put it in movies and television ourselves. I'll put it that way when we get to that point. Caitlin's asking about with Kosuke's production stuff. I might have to just make like a playlist because his stuff is all over the place. Because he's released some of his own stuff under that work, but he it's more scattered. I mean, he's done music production on a lot of different people's projects. Done a lot on Eli and Fur, which we both worked with a bit, but he worked with a lot more. So that's definitely where you can hear some of his more like dance production. Zigir Gamer, I do not know how to speak Spanish. I want to learn. Life has not afforded me that time, but I really do want to learn Spanish within the next few years. I think like life is finally stabilizing for me a little bit to where I might have more room and time to grow in ways that I've wanted to. The last decade has been wild, to say the least. I'm just now getting out of this stint of being in semi-jail. I don't know, it's not really jail, but it's a little complicated. But let's see. Any other questions anyone has? It can be about music production or creative stuff in general, or Unquit You. That's kind of the. If not, I'll go in a couple minutes. But this has been really fun. I'm gonna try to do. What is it? Tuesday, April 4th. Yeah, I'll probably try to do another stream within the next 3 days. It won't be a production stream next time. It might be either a Night Shift community focused stream. If I'm prepared to do that, because those require a little bit of prep. And if not, then it might be like a sort of in-universe stream. We'll figure it out. Let's see. Have you ever thought about selling your beats on BeatStars? I haven't really. I find that the only music making time for me that is truly satisfying is doing it the way where it's like tap into my heart and try to make something I love and put it out. I don't really. It's like it's just truly it's truly not about money. For me, it's not about finding an angle. It's like I just really really like doing this, and I will say the last few songs haven't come out super strong in a industry sense, but I don't give a single fuck because I'm really proud of them, and I think that they express what I want to express, and you guys are here, and that's why I'm doing it. So, Isabel's asking future collaborations with. Well, first of all, thank you for saying I'm a genius. That's very nice of you. Other geniuses like me, absolutely. There's going to be a lot of I will say with the Night Shift thing, the whole point is collaboration, and my relationship to collaboration is it's a couple things. It's like certainly directly collaborating with people, but also knowing when someone doesn't, when I might just make it worse. Sometimes, so like a good example is Modern People, the project that's coming. Which in the Night Shift universe is sort of the like biohacking, kind of chaotic neutral, crazy group. But musically, it's kind of really out there, abstract electronic music, and I'm not touch. I'm doing some mixing on it, but the source, the person who discovered Modern People, to put it in the terminology of Night Shift more so, Mike Higgins is. I've just learned it's just best to be like, put him in front of Ableton and be like, do it in an hour. Just make something, you know. Yeah, Ethan knows. Yeah, we can't mention Modern People because they'll kill my Wi-Fi instantly. But maybe they're not listening; they're sleeping. But yeah, so like there's things like that. Like Modern People is a good example of where the Absofacto presents Night Shift part comes in more. Where my concern is more the overall world and ecosystem and the community and all of this. And to me, that's just as collaborative as going hands-on on the music. So yeah. Patho, yeah, I'm really glad. Patho's 112 saying, I feel like I can still apply some of the things you say to my own process. Absolutely. I can't stress this enough. I think it all is the same. It all comes from the same impulse. And I'm, like I said before, I'm reading like a video game design book right now that I really like. And so many of the things about iteration and there's just a whole section on over planning versus under planning, and how if you over plan, you lose your ability to be reactive to what's actually going on the canvas in front of you. And I think like there's just so many lessons that are across all creativity. And the biggest one at the end of the day, I think, is tap into your instinct. And you as an artist is your relationship with your instinct. And if you think it's good, it is good. It doesn't matter if anyone understands it. If that's not what makes something good or bad. There's plenty of things people understand that are bad, So being understood isn't even like necessarily the primary goal. I think you only get one life to do this stuff, and you should spend it tapping tighter and tighter and tighter into your personal instinct. The book is called. It's one actually Party Provider. Brandon suggested to me. Let me find. I think if I open it up on my phone in my Books app, it's going to close out. And I literally think that the book is called like Designing Games, but I need to see what it's called. I don't think Brandon's on. It is. Designing Games: A Guide to Engineering Experiences. It's a fantastic book. I really am enjoying it, and it is. I'm learning about Unity right now. I'm learning about even Godot and Unreal Engine, and a lot of these things are going to factor into Night Shift stuff in the future. And definitely, if any of you are interested in really whatever form your creativity takes, I do hope in the near future it can become very obvious to me what exactly each of you partakes in terms of creativity, because there might be good opportunities for us to do stuff together. But yeah, the video game side is coming, and it will be quite different, I think, than the approach of the typical video game industry. So yeah, it'll be really fun. I'm excited about that part. Well, I think I'm gonna wrap this up. Oh, right when Gabe gets back, I'm gonna wrap this up. Sorry. I will literally. Hey, Gabe, if you have any production questions or anything, now is your time. I'm gonna wrap this up in just a second. Yes, Caitlin, that book is by Tynan Sylvester, and it is just so good. I really enjoy it. I'm through most of it at this point, but I've highlighted. I've never highlighted so much in a book. Thanks for tuning in, Patho. I'm okay. We got 3 minutes for any questions in the next 3 minutes. I will hit. But if not, don't worry. There'll be another stream soon. Yeah, it's really crazy right now with wait, I'll call you one more gang. Yeah, with all the like forward momentum on like game engines and the merging of like what people are using to make film, like the fact that Unreal can be used equally for film and video games is really something that I'm really excited about doing more and more with. We're actually making the fourth music video in Night Shift. We're making in Unreal Engine, and it looks really, really good. It's really cool. Again, directed by Jacqueline Kula. And it's probably my favorite of the bunch. And I won't say too much more about it, but yeah, there is a fan line. There's a fan line, Emily, that nobody is calling. So a fan line that nobody calls is wait, here we go. An actual question. How did you find the stick sound you used in the drums? So Gabe, in terms of the drum selection stuff, I am 10 years deep on sorting through samples and just reusing and hearing and processing, and I have a library of my own that I've built up of sounds that I like, and I usually start there, and then I always add a few new ones every time. But the one thing I will say about my biggest lesson that I figured out for like kind of like life hack for sample library management is keep a sample graveyard somewhere. Just a messy, like if you just designate a folder or hard drive, this is my sample graveyard. I don't think you should ever delete samples because you might have used them in an old project and you're going to ruin everything if you do that, and you don't want to do that. So yeah, I have found it very liberating to be like, I have a sample graveyard, and the moment that I hear a sound and I don't like it, and I go like, ugh, no, it's just not up to par. It's not amazing. If the sound isn't amazing, I just throw it in the sample graveyard, and I don't think I've ever looked in the sample graveyard ever again. You got to get rid of stuff, and certainly there's probably amazing sounds in the graveyard, but there's infinite amazing sounds in the world. So yeah, and whenever I open an old project, if I happen to use something that I threw in there, it just fixes the file reference automatically, and I don't even have to know about it. At times I've tried to get down to like 10 kick drums, and like, maybe I might have a folder of like 30 rims and sticks and stuff. So that's something I really, it's like a life discipline thing. Your sample library is something that you bring with you over time through your music production. There's a sample in an early version of something that couldn't be. One thing I don't like about Rodeo is it cuts off some of the chat. I'm gonna see if I can like pull it up really quick so I can actually read the full thing that you're saying. Something that couldn't be cleared. Okay, cool. So I can see the whole chat on my computer here. I actually don't remember what you mean with the sample of the early version. It probably was not a clearing issue. It probably was just like a choice that was made at a certain point of like that was something that could go away. And so it did. Okay, well, I'm going to get going. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out with me. This was really fun. And it means... Oh, actually, I know what you're talking about now. So Caitlin, yes. So that was something that kosuke put in originally. Originally the song started with a little tiny piece of I think it was from like a Japanese subway. It was like a field recording from a Japanese subway, and we ended up cutting it because just getting the vocal in literally like right away helps in the world. And it also, when we started adding the fire sounds and the theme of the matches and things like that, we wanted to kind of purify the sample approach so that it wasn't like speaking to multiple things at once, and we kind of landed on like, let's just stick with this fire theme for the Foley. Foley is like sound effects, basically. But yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, well, thank you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's really good to hang out with you. I feel like every stream is more fun than the previous one. We've only done 2, but so far it's true. And I will be announcing another one soon, and we'll figure out what the focus of it is. And thank you guys so much. Thank you again. Like, a lot of people here are the Discord gang, and thank you so much for being in there. Anyone from the Patreon, thank you so much. It makes a huge difference. And if anyone is not connected to the Beacon, I think you probably all are. But if you go to the YouTube and you go to What is Night Shift in the banner on YouTube, you will eventually find yourself at the Beacon connection interface. It's very alpha, but I've been learning Python successfully, and I am programming an interface for us to use to actually start using the Beacon, which is going to be really exciting. And it's really feels good on my brain learning programming stuff right now. So thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for tuning in, and yeah, I'll see you again soon. We're at about 100 people pre-signed up for the Beacon right now, which I feel good about. So yeah, it'll be active within the next month or so. Just fully learning Python programming myself to build that interface. So okay, I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much. I will